What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Crane Kicks Lex podcast. Last time you were with us, we had Khalid Balagoon on. It was an awesome interview. He was gracious enough to come on here and talk to us. If you haven't caught that interview yet, make sure you go back and check it out. Today's business is all about recent results, though. We're going to talk about our 2 W League games that we had since the last time that we recorded. We're also going to talk about our USO 1 match in the Jager Cup that just happened this past weekend with a big win. Super exciting match, and maybe a little bit more, as well as taking care of viewer questions. Right now, of course, we got the crew here. Everybody's accounted for. Kyle, Dylan. Dylan, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing all right. I was spending the weekend in Florida with my friend. I went down for the weekend. We had a really good time, walked around Fort Myers. That's where he's living. But, Kyle, this is really interesting. But the last time I watched an LSC match with this friend, it happened to also be an away game. And it also happened to end in 4-3, and we won. And it was a comeback victory.
The crazy NoCo match, right?
Yeah. Sounds like you need to hang out with this guy a little bit more often, especially for away matches, because there haven't been too many that ended positively.
Yes. He would also agree that we should hang out more.
Oh, would he?
Like the rabbit's foot.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit.
So petition to fly him up here every away day, at least, minimum.
Yeah, we'll get our sponsors on that.
Well, I was just thinking more LSC foot the bill because,
sure.
After all, it's their wins, right?
That's a good point. Fair point.
Yeah, they'll want to do it. Or our sponsors, because there are millions of them just flooding in. The cash flow is insane, y'all. Actually, we're in the negative. But yeah, no, it was so funny when you were texting me about that. I was like, yes, this is wild to me that it's almost mirrored 100% between those two matches.
Very similar. Very similar.
It was very similar.
Is this a regular LSC watcher or fan?
I'm not allowed to say because of things I told you guys in text messages.
Oh yeah.
Cut this part.
yeah, right. Well, it's mysterious. Nobody knows unless they get the CIA on it and they're like, wait, who's linked to Dylan and what's his link to the USL? That won't happen. It's okay. He's safe. He's safe.
Yeah. I thought it'd be wild if it was like a guy who never watched soccer and was just like, what the hell's wrong with this?
No.
Yeah.
And
then I was like, what's even happening?
Yeah.
What did they do there?
Is this normal? Is this typical?
Wait, does he go to the penalty box? Blue cards aren't out yet. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Tyler, we've been better. Had a great weekend though with visiting family. Had some come visit us over here in Central Kentucky. But if you would ask me a week ago, I would have been flying high. Big Pacers fan, and the season has kind of gone a little bit into the drain. And it was like, if you ever see, how like ESPN does the projected win percentage, which doesn't really make any sense. And I don't know how they come up with it, and if you're you're a Vikings fan, so you probably know, when you have a 98% and then all of a sudden you lose and it's just that plummet, you know what I mean?
We never have a 98%.
That's how
so I don't know.
That's how my week's been. Cause it was LSC victory. Great. And then, within an hour, Pacers blow game 3 at home, looking like they're going to get swept. Of course, we're watching, or they're on right now as we're recording this. And then the next day, Ronald Acuna tears his ACL, and it's just been a tough, few days in terms of sports fandom for your boy. But we persevere, and I think I've been through battles before, given some of the teams that I cheer for. So we will. Like I said, we'll persevere. We got to be stronger, and we have to come out on top.
I'm not really a religious man, but they say God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. So, Kyle, I think you're a pretty strong soldier.
And I know there's a lot of it's Memorial Day too. So I feel like an absolute a-hole talking about my troubles, but here we are. So first world problems, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Hey, LSC win though. At least there's that. It could have been doubled down, but it wasn't. So we're okay. It's a bright side. Speaking of Memorial Day, man, like obviously a lot to think about on days like this. A lot of people have family members that have served or might have served themselves. So big props to everybody that has, and it's, you know, it's pretty intense when you think back. It's kind of weird. I remember when my grandfather passed away last year, and I was going through stuff, and I found like his older brothers stuff from when he was in the military from like 1930, and it was wild, the things I was finding. And then you start like kind of reflecting back on that stuff. So a holiday that is taken seriously, but obviously with that, not to make light, but grilling's a big part of it because everybody gets together, right, to celebrate these things. And grilling season, it's kind of like almost when grilling season is officially here and in action, right? I know I grilled a ton of food. I'm one of those people that's all or nothing. I use like the charcoal grill and I get like as much food as I can and I grill it all at once, and then we're eating on it for eternity. And my whole family is like, why are we still eating grilled food? It's been a week. And I'm like, just eat the grilled food. It's amazing. Just stop complaining.
What our forefathers wanted. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because I always get judged by my friends because they're all big like gas grill people. And they're like, why don't you just use a gas grill? It's so much easier. And I'm like, I just can't. It's odd. For as easy as they make gas grills anymore, I just can't get it right like I can on the charcoal grill. I think it's just like that weird old school thing. I feel like one of those people that's just like a snob about it. And I try not to be. But I love grilling. Kind of brings me to the question, because I feel like everybody feels strongly about this. What's your top grilled food? Like when you're talking about whether you're cooking or eating, what is like the thing if you show up to a barbecue and they don't have it, you're like, this is whack, and whoever is grilling doesn't deserve to be having the tongs?
I mean, to me, it sort of depends on who's the grill master, like if it's me or if it's a random party that I'm at. But the top tier to me are ribs. My father
Ooh,
makes the best ribs on the planet. And I don't know if that technically counts because he actually cooks them in the oven for a few hours and then finishes them on the grill.
I
That's
count it.
the best. I've never gone anywhere, gone to a restaurant and had ribs that were even close to what my dad's been able to do. So those would be like my number one, kind of that top elite level. He has not yet passed that wisdom on to me in terms of like how to make them that way. So I'm kind of waiting for that day. But in the meantime, for me personally, I'm pretty run of the mill. I don't get too creative. I mean, hot dogs, brats, burgers, chicken, steak, anything, wings. I can do it all. I'm also a big fan of grilling like pineapples and peppers, things like that to go with it. As you
Nice.
mentioned, just put it all on there and it's good to go.
Hey, it would be so awesome if like your dad had engraved tongs they gave you with just like the instructions for how to do it and just passes it on. It has like a, SpongeBob meme with the box that's open,
Yeah,
the old reliable, and then there it is. And then you're like,
yeah,
finally. And it's like all the knowledge pours into you. And now you can do ribs for us. For
man,
us.
they're like unbelievable. I wish I could just share them with
I
everybody.
wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that too,
Yeah.
man. Thought we were friends, but better. Uh, I'm a big like grilled wings person.
Oh
I
yeah.
love grilling wings, and it's unfortunate because nobody in my family, at least my immediate family, like my sons and my wife, they don't eat chicken wings. Like they'll do like the tenders. They don't like chicken wings though. They're all weirded out by it being on the bone, but
I
I
like
absolutely love it. Hey, come
I
over.
like wings.
I got it. I love wings. There's this Bachan's barbecue sauce. It's Japanese barbecue sauce, and I marinate wings in that and grill them, and it is the bomb. And unfortunately, since nobody else eats wings in the household, half the time I end up eating like 20 wings by myself, and I feel terrible, but amazing all at the same time. But man, it's good. But you mentioned doing like pineapple. Have you actually ever had grilled watermelon?
I have not.
No.
No.
It is the weirdest thing, but it's so good. I'm kind of a watermelon freak. Like me and my sons could clean out a whole watermelon in a single sitting. But somebody actually had me try grilled watermelon at a grill cookout one time, and it was so good. It was the weirdest thing ever because it kind of caramelizes a little bit of the sugars on the outside and changes the flavor some. But it's actually pretty solid. It's not one of those things that you would think to grill immediately, but apparently it's kind of a big thing amongst other people. But I don't know, it's pretty solid. Dylan, what about you, man?
I think the only thing that's like a must that like if you're gonna have the grill out and you're gonna have people over, the must is a hot dog. I really think that's
Mhm.
the only like must, you know.
Yeah,
I
you
think
can't have a party
rib,
and people are like, "Where are the hot dogs?" And you're like,
yeah.
I didn't make hot dogs." You gotta have hot dogs. That's
Ribs
good.
and
Yeah.
wings are like, obviously great options, but I think they're a little eccentric for the normal, get
It's true.
together.
Good
That's
fans
fair.
as well.
If you're having a normal get together, you got to have the glizzy, on deck. They're very versatile too. I think you can put a lot of different toppings on them. You can get creative. You can throw some onion on there, get some cheese, all the different condiments. You can go crazy with them. You can cut them up and use a fork and feed them to kids if they don't like the bun. Too. They're very versatile. I think I'm a really big burger fan, and I would be upset if burgers were not on the menu, but I think I would be more offended if the dogs were not on the menu. Gotta have the dogs.
The real question for your dogs, burnt or not?
I don't discriminate. Like I could go either way. Like I like them boiled. I like them in a pan. I like them on a grill. I'll eat a hot dog any way you hand it to me.
Well, yeah, we'll
Green
clip
eggs
that
and
for
ham.
use later. I would prefer a brat myself, but I also will eat a hot dog just about anyway. Haven't met one that I don't like yet to this point, but I'm definitely a little bit burnt. Not a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's say with me, like I'm always the person at like the barbecue. If nobody will eat the burnt ones, I'll eat it because I'm just like, whatever. I'm just really not picky, kind of a human garbage disposal. So it's like, whatever. Um, but yeah, no, I get that. I get the like basics. I can respect that, Dylan. With the burgers and dogs, if they're not there, then what are we even doing? That makes
Exactly.
sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I can forgive somebody not having like wings or ribs.
And I know some people don't like cheeseburgers. I don't, I try not to associate with those people, but
Yeah.
sometimes if you're just at a party and people are asking like, all right, who wants cheese? Like if I'm grill master, everyone's getting cheese. You're just
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense if you don't want cheese. If you like, I don't know, peel it off or you know eat a hot dog. That's what the hot dogs are
Yeah,
for.
that's right. Like no cheese on your burger, little suspect. Not gonna lie. I don't
Little
really know about
sauce.
all
We
that.
made we grilled out burgers. We got them from Whole Foods, not to brag or anything, but and they had something in them. Like we had the ones that were already pattied out, and
Yeah.
these suckers caught on fire. I mean, they were whatever they were dripping into the
It's all
grill.
that extra fat.
Yeah. Oh man. And yeah, so we had a little bit of a fire issue on our hands, but turned out really great. They were delicious.
I live in an apartment, so I don't get to have a grill myself, so I like really miss out. But I really feel like in my life, as the years have gone on, I got better at cooking, and like as I got bigger apartments and like more supplies, so I can't wait to add grilling to my repertoire. So you guys will have to host, so I can come and get some grilled food though.
Yeah. I mean, and it's important too. You have to know kind of what is direct heat, what's indirect heat, when you cover the lid, when you don't cover the lid, all that stuff. I mean, it's important. Um, every self-respecting homeowner at least should be able to do that. You're right though. If you're in an apartment, that kind of stinks. We just got an air fryer, and they've been talking about air fryers for a few years now. So I'm looking forward to 3 years from now when I finally get a Blackstone and get to see what that's like, because everyone's all
Those are
about.
cool.
Can I be honest? I'm very woke on the air fryer. Like I'm like they're just like a farce to me. I would rather have like a really nice toaster oven because I feel like they do the same thing, and
Yeah,
I
you're
feel like
wrong.
they're a lot cooler. And
Do you have an air fryer?
no, I don't for
Yeah,
this
you're
exact
wrong.
reason
You're
because
wrong.
you know,
I used to be that way. I used to be naive, and yeah.
yeah.
You,
Now
you
I've
just
seen the
haven't
light.
been introduced to the light.
Just like I'm very woke to the fact that like anything higher than 35 SPF sunscreen doesn't work. Like that's all a farce. That's a lie. Anything 35 and higher, like you should reapply. Definitely. Anyway, this is just me.
Your boys dropping like 100 SPF continuously. Me and the son go to battle. It's every day. I'm like that kid like at the swimming pool that has way too much on. You can tell like you have like the overprotective mom, and they're just coated and you can see all the sunscreen still. That's how I have to go out into the world. Otherwise it's not good news. Like my whole like supervillain thing is I would take out the sun. Like, like you have some super villains that are like, I'm going to take out the
Mr.
moon. I'm going to
Burns.
do this or whatever. Yeah. The sun, I would take it out, and everybody's like, but we need it. No, I'll make artificial whatever we need. I don't want to get sunburned.
Simpsons did it.
Right? Yeah, they did it first. They predicted this. They did it again. Look, they predicted our episode. Man. Well, hey, speaking of cooking, let's talk about our W League team. They've been cooking. They've had some pretty awesome results, not gonna lie. We actually haven't had a chance to talk about the last 2 games. They're kind of coming fast and furious. They're very, very kind of short windows that we see these games happen. And if anybody hasn't noticed, in fact, we've got another game coming this Wednesday. So another just boom, boom right after the Saturday game. But we had another matchup against St. Charles, right? And then we ended up facing off against King's Hammer as well. So figure it's worth talking about because we had another 4-0 victory against St. Charles. Unfortunately, we had a 2-1 defeat against King's Hammer, which King's Hammer is pretty respectable. They drew Indy 11, who won last year, won the whole thing. They drew them 3-3 not long ago. So I knew it would be kind of a tough battle. It was away, obviously. But out of these games, I managed to catch them on the stream. The newest game, the one against King's Hammer, was streaming at the same time as our Jager Cup match in USL 1. So I was dual wielding, trying to watch both at the same time, which was super tough. It's one of those moments where you wish you had like chameleon eyes. You could focus on 2 things at once. But, I did my best, just held one in front of the other and just switched back constantly. It's probably why I wear glasses. But out of these 2 matches, even with the 3rd game of the season being a defeat, there's some pretty solid takeaways. I mean, right now we're sitting 2nd in the table for the Valley Division, although we do have a game in hand on Racing, or Racing has a game in hand on us, I guess. So they could potentially catch up, but we're 2nd in the standings. Not a bad start. Also thinking about how many goals we've scored is pretty encouraging. So, Dylan, what were some of your takeaways, man?
Yeah, so I think the women's team is off to a fantastic start so far. They're scoring a lot. That's a really positive sign. There's been some consistency in the lineup too, so I like to see that as well. Obviously, in the pre-match predictions for Saturday's match, I had said that Fishnick would get another brace. She did not have a goal, but Kaylee Utley did, which is awesome. And yeah, like you mentioned, Tyler, they're 2nd in the division right now, under Indy 11 and above Racing Louisville. So that's really cool. Some interesting facts too is so Caitlin Fishnick is tied for 3rd in goals with 4. For the league.
In the whole W League?
The whole league, yes. And it's a very big
league.
It's a very big league too.
It's
like
massive.
If people don't realize.
Yeah, I think there's like 3,000 teams in it.
So yeah. I don't know if Kyle's even exaggerating or not, to be honest with you. It's a lot.
I stopped counting.
That's my favorite thing about Kyle is he says things with a dead face. And then I kind of wait for him to like wink or something. And I'm like, wait a second. It's my favorite.
So for perspective, the top goal scorer has 6, so she's only 2 off. And Kaylee Utley is also on the list. She has 2. So some very good company up there, and I'm really impressed with the women's start so far.
Doesn't Kaylee have 3 now? Didn't you get a brace against St. Charles in their 2nd match and then 1 on this one?
Utley has 3, in 3 matches.
Yeah.
Well,
we got 2 ballers.
I took my statistics from the league site and they failed me. So
they need to put some respect on Kaylee Utley's name. That's it's hard. Hey, but that's like a good point, Dylan, and not to sidetrack because I'm gonna get to Kyle, but it is tough to keep track of some of the things for the W League, which a lot of that is like we've talked about in the past. I know we mentioned this on a previous pod, but there's just so many players that transition in and out of each team, and where it's pre-professional. Stats aren't kept quite as rigorously by sites. For instance, like FOTMob. A lot of people use FOTMob for USL 1 stats or other leagues, and they don't keep it at all. If I don't think anybody from FOTMob is listening at all, but maybe I'll tweet at them and be like, keep W League stats, but it's tough, and sometimes you find those inconsistencies. Kyle, what are your takeaways, man?
So, not to be the wet blanket or anything, I do think some of this is this hot start. I think has a little bit to do with the schedule, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think we'll really learn a lot more about this squad over the next 3 matches.
Yeah.
It'll be just a tough sledding, 2 against Racing and 1 against sandwiching a match against Indy 11. Not a lot of rest between those matches either. So I think we'll really see, how this team stacks up. But to start out with 2 4-0 victories, if anything, you're at least kind of creating that culture of scoring and being on the attack and putting those teams away. I remember last season there was a match against St. Charles, and I talk about exaggerating. I do think we had like a 41-3 advantage in shots, and I think it ended 0-0. And so being able to convert those chances is important, obviously. So I don't want to take away anything from that. What I do like to see is the distribution of playing time. I think 23 players by my records have seen the field. 6 have started all 3 matches. So there is a little bit of a consistent core. But we're seeing the use of different players. Some of them have signed, since the season even started. So it goes back to that kind of fluctuating roster thing that can be a little bit of an issue. But again, the whole point of this league is to get playing time, exposure, and provide opportunities for these players at higher levels, or again, playing time heading into their collegiate season. So it's been really great. I mean, obviously this last match notwithstanding, it's been mostly positive for the W League. So I hope the squad can roll that into some positive results against Racing, especially Indy 11 would obviously be fantastic, but they seem to be the class of the league once again. So if anything, having a great result against our rival down I-64 would be great. And I know from for a lot of the players on the squad that are maybe Lexington or Central Kentucky natives, Kings Hammer is just as much of a rival probably in their eyes too, because they've grown up, with Kings Hammer being right in their backyard as well. So positive start, and we'll hope to, I'd like to be able to see it through the next 3 matches at least, and see where we stand from there.
Tyler, how are you feeling?
I feel really good. I am taking it with a grain of salt because this isn't like a jab at St. Charles, but whenever I look at our group and I think about the toughness of the competition, we had success against them last year on the whole, and they were one of the few teams that it seems like we could consistently expect to at least go toe-to-toe with over the course of the past 2 years. So the 4-0 victories, doing 2 is awesome. That shows that we can keep that momentum. But I'm with Kyle. I feel like the true tests are starting to come, and our competition is ramping up as we go through our season. It's kind of like we're starting with like the easier end of the spectrum, and then it gets tougher and tougher and tougher. And that's not to take away from teams, but I mean, in all fairness, if you look at recent results and if you look at last year's results and you kind of compare it and look at all that, it's kind of how it works out, right? But it is really, really cool to see consistency from players. So, Fishnick scoring 4 goals, Utley scoring 3. We have consistent scores, which is something you love to see. I mean, you want everybody to score, right? I mean, we had Bookard and Weeks score as well throughout our matches, which is great. You want to see everybody get their moment to shine. But it's really, really encouraging whenever you see the same players producing consistently, and you hope that that's going to carry forward in future matches. Now, obviously, it takes a whole team to make that happen. It's not like they're just running it up the field, dribbling through everybody on their own, and then scoring, and that's that. So the supporting cast, I feel like, for our W League team is getting overlooked a little bit because it's so hard to find those statistics, and some of the streams are better than others. Just if you watch the one against Kingshammer, it's kind of hard to follow. There was no commentator. So, unless you're like standing right up on your screen and closely watching all the numbers, or you have every single player's face memorized from their profile, it was kind of tough to keep track of who was doing what consistently because of the camera angles and no audio. But, we seem to have a team that's clicking, and it is hopefully going to carry us to pretty solid heights. And we've talked about this before, that there's also the undertone of there's possibility. Maybe there's a couple people in our W League team that are going to appear on our Super League team. Maybe this is kind of like the getting them ramped up and ready to go. And then before we know it, we're going to see them in that next level playing for us there. And this is kind of our moment to see them beforehand. But overall, I feel pretty solid. I feel good. It is kind of intense to think that there's so many games packed so close together for them to compete in. But it does kind of fill my LSC heart knowing that I have consistent action from our team, especially after having to go through those couple of bye weeks for the men's team and feeling like we were in like a barren wasteland and there was nothing to watch. And I was just like, oh, look at all the other teams having fun. It's like that SpongeBob Squidward meme thing where you're like watching through the blinds and everybody else is outside having fun. So it's nice to have that as an extra little outlet for us to be able to watch and see what's going on. And, speaking of the Super League, right, we did have a good announcement regarding them that just happened this past week, right? So for our Super League, we at least have our home opener date, right? What was our home opener date again, Kyle? What day was that?
It's Sunday, September 8th.
September 8th, right?
September 8th against Tampa Bay Sun.
Tampa Bay Sun. So
For the
from what I saw, from what I saw, it was like August 17th, I think, is the actual first home opener of any team. So our home opener is not happening till almost a month later, close to, not quite, just shy of, I guess, which is interesting. So we'll have some chances to see our team play before that happens, but there'll be away games. So our first one won't be until almost the second week of September. I guess technically it would be the second week of September. And by that time, hopefully we'll have a pretty solid stadium that we can call home. And it is kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys feel this way either, but it almost feels like the schedule might have been made this way to kind of help us out a little bit with our time frames, buy us a little bit of extra time to make sure our stadium is ready to play in, ready to go. It might not be the case, but I remember the league kind of did this for NOCO when NOCO was building their new complex. NOCO didn't have their first home game last year until deep into the season. It was like May or something. So they were kind of cut a little bit of a break as far as getting time to get their stadium complex ready to go. Might not have been a break in the sense of you have to start your season with a bunch of away games, which can be tough. But I don't know. It's kind of the vibe it gives me, but I'm super excited. I'm very, very pumped. It's going to be great, especially with it happening in September. Hopefully the weather's starting to maybe cool off just a little bit. It's getting away from August and maybe kind of getting back into the 70s at least, maybe not the 90s or something terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you make a good point. The league most likely did want to allow as much time as possible, and that's something that, as you mentioned with NOCO, it's pretty standard for the league. I think, especially they need these 8 teams to be as successful, not necessarily on the pitch, obviously, but just as successful with their operations of everything as they can be. Right? It's a league that has been the kind of worst kept secret for the longest time in terms of some of the clubs that were involved. And so now that it's finally, the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, is approaching rapidly, they want to be able to do everything they can, I think, to make it a success and to make it a great experience, not only for the players, but for fans as well.
Yeah, I just know I'm super pumped. I just have really, really high hopes for our Super League team. I'm itching to start seeing players being announced because every other team has announced at least a player, unless I'm losing track. Maybe Dallas might not have. I can't remember if Dallas has or not, but I know that a lot of the other teams have already started announcing at least some of their players. So, of course, like I'm sitting here just like twiddling my thumbs being like, okay, I know you got them. I know you have a few names sitting on a desk somewhere. So let's hear these. Let's get hyped. And, I'm really excited to dig deep into their game and see, what they have to offer, whoever it might be.
And shout out to the scheduling masters as well for not conflicting with University of Kentucky home football with their very first home opener. That would have not gone over well. The Cats play on Saturday, so making it a Sunday match, maybe Sundays are going to be standard anyway. But that was a good call there.
It was. That's funny that you mentioned that, man. I actually texted Dylan and Kyle. I was out to lunch today at Carson's, and Mark Stoops was like sitting next to me. And I texted him, I was like, hey, Mark Stoops is here. And Dylan's like, tell him to run the ball more. And I was like, yeah, well, I didn't. I'm not going to lie to you, Dylan.
I
I'm just
know
not
you
revealing this
weren't.
to you.
I know
I
you
didn't. I
wouldn't.
didn't interrupt his family meal to tell him to run the ball more.
Yeah. Thank
It
you.
was like awkward because he kept like looking at me like he knew me. And I was just like, stop looking at me. It was like freaking me out a little bit because I was like, does he know that I'm texting them about him?
Is that Crane? Crane Kicks? Is
Yeah.
that Crane Kicks Lex?
He's a big fan.
Never know. Maybe he is. Maybe he listens.
Well, shout
Who
out
knows?
Mark Stoops.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, we got to get you a sticker.
Run the ball
On
more.
every player's helmet. Yeah, run the ball more. Dylan says so. But no, that was kind of cool. So Super League gonna be sweet. We got that to look forward to. But we also have to pay attention to the here and now. Jager Cup action. Let's transition to that because I'm itching to talk about this wild game. It was wild. It had moments of like, oh man, what are we doing? This is going terribly. And moments of like, oh, we got hope again. It's okay. And then, oh, what are we doing again? And then, of course, with the finish, I lost my mind. I was losing my mind. Like I don't know that we've ever had a match that went so much our way so late in the game. And again, it's just weird. It's kind of surreal to have that happen. I mean, I guess maybe there's a couple that come to mind that were sort of similar. But for us to pull off 2 goals after stoppage time or during stoppage time, I should say, I don't know. I was kind of flabbergasted. I was a little bit in like shock after the initial like screaming and waking my children up. But after that point, I was like, okay, we did it. We did the thing. We got a road win. Which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it might only be our second road win ever. Is that right? Like a Tormento win, and is this like number 2?
No, we have NoCo.
Okay, was it NoCo then? I don't know. We don't have that many road wins, y'all. Like our road record is suffering. We even talked to Khalid about that. He's like, we were asked him, how do you guys prepare for this with this stretch and what are we going to do? And apparently they prepared. Not everything went perfect, but all that matters is the points in the end. Kyle, if you're talking, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying I was talking, but not for the podcast. So,
oh, gotcha.
That must have been confusing.
You're over there cussing about the Pacers.
No, I'm not.
Saying pass the ball.
I'm focused completely on this podcast and not watching the Pacers unable to get a defensive rebound. It's really not that hard. It's about effort, honestly. Rebounding is all about effort. Just a quick basketball tangent. To me, it's just, if a guy that shot the ball at like a 3-pointer is able to get the rebound on a bounce, like someone messed up, right? Like it's not open gym. There's 5 of you out there, get the rebound. I think Lexington SC did a fantastic job rallying late. I do think, as you mentioned, this is typically something that happens to Lexington and not something that Lexington has done to other opponents. And so it was a very refreshing change of pace. I had to watch the second half in stoppage time on my phone. So it was so obviously our text group was going off. So I was trying to like switch. It's kind of the bad thing about, I guess, ESPN Plus. It's great that you can have it, access to it everywhere, but you have to kind of leave the app and then, or at least like, move the screen up a little bit and then like have a little bit of window to text and then go back to the match. So it was a little hectic, but at the end of the day, 3 points, man, it was huge.
We need to get you a burner just for our text thread.
Yeah.
That way you can like text in one hand and watch on the other with your busy lifestyle. And that way you can watch and text on the go at the same time. We'll do that. So we got this. It really was amazing. And looking at how it started out, it was rough, right? It didn't take very long for Chattanooga to score on us. And Chattanooga is one of those teams like last year was kind of a little bit of a boogeyman for us. They were tough. Like even whenever other teams were running through them and just being like, oh yeah, we just beat them like 5-0, no big deal. We always seemed to just kind of run into them whenever they were catching form, or it's like they had our number. And so it wasn't
same person too. It's
right.
The same player, and
right.
He is our boogeyman for some reason. Like
yes,
like he's the monster that lives under our bed at night. Because he was running rampant, and I knew that like when I saw the starting lineups for both sides and I saw
Yeah.
his name in there, I was like, man, this is going to be a tough battle because for some reason he just has our number. But yeah, credit to the guys for fighting back. But like that was awesome. But we do need to talk about that we are a leaky defense right now.
Mhm.
Like that's it's not good. I don't know if it's like Modesto's not in there. Obviously he would he would probably be a starter. If that was
Yeah.
the case, I think he's injured. And you have to wonder, but we live in the now, as Kyle says.
I mean, it's true. Whenever we look at that first goal, especially, was off of a defensive mistake. Like there's no two ways about it. And
Silly
then like,
mistake.
yeah, and then Fox tries to recover, but of course, in him trying to help him recover, he's standing right in front of Amal, and Amal can't see where the shot's going, and so Amal does his best to jump to try and save it, but he has no view of that shot being taken, which it was just a tough situation, right? It's one of those moments where things start happening quickly, and you're frantically trying to recover, and we just got. We just got. The second goal, that was just an amazing run with a cutback. Like that was a matter of their players having one more step on ours, both of them. You know what I mean? And Malongo, you're right. Malongo is just dangerous. And I put in our write up to watch out for Ropapa Mensah. He didn't play, obviously, and I didn't catch that, but that he wasn't going to be in. But Malongo was second on my list as far as who we should be watching out for. Chevon Marsh is also super dangerous. Chattanooga, like a lot of people dunk on them all the time as an organization, which whatever, say what you want about them, but you can't deny that they have good players. They have players that can get it done. And they were playing really aggressive pressing football. And, that's hard sometimes to deal with. Whenever you have a team that's constantly in your face and doesn't give you a moment to breathe, it's really, really tricky. And that's how they were playing. And we were getting burned so much off of it. And despite that, I will say we did really, really good about battling, though. I don't really know that I ever felt that there was a moment in the match where it felt like we had just resigned ourselves to be done and just say, you know what, that's kind of it. It seemed like we didn't really lose a step, in my opinion, which was encouraging. Khalid talked about that in our interview about how this year the guys, whenever their backs are against the wall, it's more maturity as far as how you handle it and being like, okay, this isn't going right. What do we do to get it right? And then you try your best to implement that plan. And I think that we saw that in this match, and it paid off. And gosh, getting that like that back and forth was stressing me out. I don't know about you guys, but the constant them scoring, us scoring, and then feeling that bit of hope, and then them scoring again, and then being like, dang, what are we doing? And then getting another equalizer and be like, okay, here's our hope again, and then them scoring again. That was emotionally wrecking. Like, all right, like my blood pressure medicine was going to work during that match. But it was really, really cool to see Ates get a goal out of this one, especially, we talked about him having a little bit of an absence due to injury and then coming back. And now he seems to be picking up pace, right? How do we feel about like Ates specifically? And knowing that in this match, he was doing so well, he was doing awesome. And by the time you're listening to this, we can go ahead and spoil this. He was voted man of the match. That's how good of a game he had. So how are we feeling about where he's at so far?
I think he's performing very well right now. I feel like he's starting to pick up a little momentum. He's starting to get that swagger back a little bit. I really just want to get him the ball as often as we can because he's very hungry for it. And when he has the ball, good things happen. He can create chances for himself or other people, and that is one of the most important attributes a player can have, and he's got it oozing.
Man, he was just like letting them rip during the first part of the game too. Like he was just shooting any time that he was within 20 yards of a goal. And I mean, that's what we saw last year from him. That's why he was scoring so many goals, because he's one of those players that he sees a tiny, mediocre space and he's like, you know what? Why not? Why not? It might go in. Let's bet on myself, take the shot and see what happens. And, unfortunately, some of those didn't go in, but he got one. Kyle?
He's an incredible operator in tight space. Like the ball just never is far from his feet in those opportunities. And but the shot that really was that I think was kind of almost foreshadowing that you're like, okay, he's going to get a goal, was after that really nice run down the right wing by Chris Lou Young, where he just skirted around the defender and set up Ates, and that was one where you could kind of feel it building. Like you said, he was always on the attack on the front foot, drawing fouls. He was, taking shots, as you mentioned. And I think that shot that went over the crossbar was sort of that kind of indicator. And then, of course, he's not going to miss the one that Jaden Onan set up for him. The team as a whole, though, I think settled into the match really well. The pitch itself was like had these weird like puddles, like just ball would just
that weird square. Too. When the ball would hit it, it would skip up.
I was worried about Amal in the first half too, because where the keeper's space too in the box was horrible. I thought he could catch an unlucky bounce easily. I was so worried.
Yeah, that's one reason maybe Powell was just telling him like, just shoot, because if the keepers aren't going to have great footing anyway, or what, let's just shoot. The pitch was just very odd and it kind of worked.
Did you see how much water was splashing up too?
Yes, it was holding a lot. It was holding.
Honestly, surprised that they were able to play on that, or that they chose to play on it. Really,
it actually benefited us on Diouf's first goal, because I think the defender who was tracking with Onan just misread the ball completely, and it might have been the reason. But either way, one thing that's a little discouraging, not to get off of Diouf at all, is surrendering equalizers. First one was 3 minutes later, and the next one was 2 minutes later. So it's keeping that composure, and not only when you score a goal, but not only when you allow a goal, but when you score a goal, like making sure your shape is where it needs to be and making sure that you're tightening back up. So I think this was this is kind of the best way to learn these lessons, is in a win. But I think hopefully it's something that going forward that the club can kind of make an emphasis. And I thought Chris Lou Young played really well. I know I mentioned his name. He actually he did get the assist on Cerritos' goal, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But I thought he had a standout performance, and in general, I thought the team never backed down, right? And you mentioned what Khalid said to us, and they put it into action, right? Those are matches that I feel like last year and earlier this year end up on the wrong side, of those more often than not. So it was really satisfying to see the guys kind of dig deep and come away with that dramatic victory.
So speaking of like the victory, we already kind of talked about some of the players that were on the field. Dylan, what did we see from this lineup? Like, what was different or what was the same? What did we end up with out on that field compared to maybe our last match?
In goal, we had Amal Knight. In front of him, there was a back four consisting of our captain, wearing the captain's armband. I know our graphics put out that Lancaster is the captain, but Jorge wears the armband. So just a little FYI. But he was at left back, of course. Kalen Fox and Ebby Akon holding down the center back positions, and Chris Lou Young at the right back spot. Pierre Mane and Abel Caputo were our midfield pivots. Rounding out our midfield in the number 10 position was Alexis Cerritos. Did you guys know that Cerritos translates to Little Hill? So I don't know. Maybe that's his nickname. He is kind of on the smaller side too.
That's our fun fact for today.
That's a really fun fact. Go ahead.
In the attack front, Ates the Truth Diouf was out on the left wing. His counterpart, Jaden Onan, occupied the right wing position. And lastly, our striker was none other than Cameron Lancaster.
And this is like a solid lineup. It's very similar to what we saw in our last match. Like obviously Cerritos getting his first start for the club. And we have Ebby back in because, like you had mentioned, Modesto, we still haven't heard much about his status, which Modesto had been tearing it up for us. Ebby, I feel like, is still kind of getting his flow. So figuring out everything. Obviously a lot of the other members of the team have had a chance to kind of get to know each other in an actual game setting. So I'm sure that will come. But overall, I feel like, there were times where it felt like we were put on our back foot. And Kyle, you mentioned it. We just constantly seemed to get caught off guard by their attack. Their counterattack was just so tough. And honestly, we always seem to have trouble with teams that are ferocious on counters. Like teams that can hit you hard and fast, we just struggle to just get prepared and stop them. And it ends up being like, okay, well, we're going to just have to see if we can score more than they can, which we did in this case. But, I'm super pumped about this game and the way it ended up, because what matters is the results and what you come away with. And we came away with the 3 points. But man, I wish we wouldn't always have to work so hard for those 3 points. So, some teams, it just seems like they get to go into these matches and it's almost effortless. They get the right day, or the wind's blowing the right way, and everything's good. And man, we have to battle for what we get. But, it was really, really cool to see everybody have a really strong game. I thought it was real interesting that our right side was so strong this time. We're so used to our left side really being our side that we operate on. And Crystal Young was doing really, really great. And then Jaden Onan was all over the place. I mean, if we were to put out like player of the match and nobody had scored a goal, he was one of the most impactful players out there aside from Ates. Like Ates was the other player that we just felt his presence all over the place. So in the wing position, I feel like we did really, really well. And, Jaden Onan obviously was setting up lots of chances. He had that one where he tried to feed it to Cam Lancaster. He caught him out of his peripheral whenever they were running, which I had actually tweeted out. I was like, man, I wish that Jaden had been selfish on that one, because I feel like it was tough because he had two defenders bird dogging him. They were right on his heels. And then you, of course, have the goalie coming out at him, but I wish he had just let it rip and seen what happened. But it is what it is. He made the decision that he thought was best in that time. And it's a split second type of situation. But then he, of course, ends up being impactful, sending over to Ates, which was a nice tap in. I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything better as far as a setup for that.
Yeah, I was yelling at the screen. I would say, be unselfish, like in that moment, because I want a surefire thing. I want points on the board. I want to win the game. I don't care about your personal stats, to be honest. Like, score for the team, play for the badge, square that pass to someone who can definitely put it in the net. And I really appreciated how unselfish it was of Jaden to do that. And I loved it. Very, very thankful that it happened.
Where you mentioned we already kind of let the cat out of the bag that Ates was named the Crane Kicks MVP. Where did TJ Bush finish on the voting?
Oh, TJ Bush, to me, I feel like he had a pretty good. I mean, I think he could have been MVP. I mean, he sent that ball directly to Nico. That was the most beautiful assist I've ever seen in my life. He looked up, he saw Nico, and he's like, Nico, turn around.
He was wide open. Nico was wide open. I mean,
I'm just really grateful that Nico turned when he did.
Right.
And then you immediately saw it dawn on him. He's like, this ball is going to land right at my feet. And I'm faster than any of these people that are next to me. And I mean, that was it. And that's what we love about Nico.
And hats off to him for putting it away too.
Yeah,
yes.
Like, it was a really nice goal too. It hit the corner and it pinged right in, and fantastic. Like, that's a contender for goal of the season for me, to be honest with you guys. Like, it was really, like, I thought it was great skill, great awareness for him. Like, awesome play from him. Like, really hats off.
And he was in that. Again, that could have just gone back to the field conditions, right? For DJ on that goal kick. It was just, I mean, it was a gift. Again, I feel like those are gifts that Lexington has given other teams more often than not, and that one's placed right at our feet, and Nico delivered. I mean, it was awesome.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but like, you also have to create your own luck. That is part of being, in sports. You have to create your own luck. And whatever happened.
Yeah.
Well, when Nico turning around and notice it, what I mean?
That's what I mean. The great
creating
awareness.
Your own luck.
Yeah.
You're right, man. And then also, I don't think people will appreciate. You said for you it's one of the goals of the season. I don't think a person can truly appreciate until you're in that situation how much adrenaline probably starts pumping in your body when you realize, like, you have that type of opportunity, and like how
one,
right, how easy it would be to just whiff it. You know what I mean? Because you're so like, all right, this is happening. I'm going to score, and then you don't score because you get too amped up. And that just shows how much composure he has, that he was able to be like, okay, go, just beat him. Make sure that you choose correctly where you're going. Think about this. Keep your composure. Make it happen.
And he went with the left foot too, and it almost the way it was kind of out, I was like, "This is not going to go well." And then he tucked it in. Right?
Like you guys are saying it really well. Like, do not overlook this goal. Like it was really, it took a lot of skill for him to complete it.
It was awesome. And speaking of skill, Cerritos had, like, that's another one where you overlook the skill. His was, of course, just like a quick deflection, but it also requires poise in front of the goal. And he didn't have like a breakaway situation. He was in traffic. The goal, obviously is produced off of a Chris Liu Young feed in, right? He feeds that ball in, and then Alexis just turns, puts his foot just right, pops it right into that corner as nice as you like. And that was just, it was clean. It was a clean goal. It was a very professional goal.
Especially when you don't have a time to like gather. I mean, if you're just one time in those things, 3 of the 4 goals came that way for Lexington.
True.
I think Ates probably, he could have scored that goal in 10 different ways, but Cerritos and then Lancaster for the 4th goal, those 2 kind of one-timers, you just have to make a split decision, and they both found the back of the net.
And we gotta say, like, if Cam Lancaster's goal is not up for the vote for goal of the week, I don't even know what would be, because I kept replaying it in real time. You just see that he scores, and you're caught up in the moment. You're like, we won. I can't believe that. There's no way they're going to come back off of this. But there's not enough time. We got this. It's locked down. But then you replay it, and you realize Ates is whipping that ball in. And for Cam Lancaster to like pull off this Karate Kid move, just completely just hit it sideways in the air basically, and get that in the net. Like, what a phenomenal goal. And, of course, with Cam, this is an open play goal for him. We've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for some of these open play goals to start picking up with him. He obviously has a huge name in Kentucky soccer, made his name up in Louisville, and now he's bringing his skills to us. And I think this is one of those goals that shows I've still got it. There's a reason why I'm signed. There's a reason why I'm starting up top, and this is my spot, and I'm going to do more of these. So that was really, really sweet to see.
One thing I want to talk about on that goal too is Tate was in on that.
Yes.
I know that like soccer doesn't record the second assist like in hockey, or I know when I play 2K, I always get or like the My Player mode in NBA 2K, you get the like points for pass to assist, and I think those plays are actually really important. So hats off to Tate for that. And great assist. Ates looking for someone, and Lancaster like swinging his leg like instinctually for the ball. It was really fantastic. Kyle.
Well, my fun fact is in NCAA soccer, you can give 2 assists on a goal. It's the only level that you can do that. I don't know why that's a rule or why they haven't changed it, but in college soccer, you can give 2 assists. So that's strange. You can also give an assist if on a rebound goal. So like if a player shoots and it's saved and another player, that's an assist, which I kind of like. So that's our NCAA soccer corner for the day. I thought it was fantastic not only to see Cam, out there that late in the match, just because he seemed, typically that's a position and a player that, would come off just naturally in the course of the match. So to have him still in there, still fighting, that's one of the players who, I don't want to bring up the Vermont match too often, but he impressed me quite a bit in that, just with his tenacity and his fight for a player who's accomplished so much, done so much. Maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I feel like there are a lot of moments and opportunities for him to say, I've done this, I've been here. I might not need this as much as other players, but he hasn't done that. He's been in it till the final whistle. And I think this was you could see the jubilation for not only him. Amal Knight came up and celebrated. It was everybody was celebrating this goal. Obviously, given the time and score, it was an important one, but it just felt really special coming from him, and the elation afterward was, I think, well deserved and awesome to see from the team too.
It was just I gotta say that second assist, we're gonna recognize that on this pod, especially
Thank
when you have
you.
things like what Tate did, because that back heel was nasty. It had the perfect pace, the perfect angle for Ates, and like I'm just psyched because this was another opportunity to show how multifaceted Ates is. Because last year we were just like, he scores goals, that's what he does. He scores goals, and then I feel like he was putting himself in positions to really truly deliver that supporting role in this match as well. And that assist just shows that he has a nose for those type of plays as well. Man, like talk about a game where our talents were shining. You know what I mean? And it's a tough game because a lot of people will be pessimistic overall, and rightly so about some of it, right? Like we should not have let in all those goals. We should not have been caught directly after scoring. But I will say there was a lot to say as far as those individual performances contributing to the team effort and then making what happened happen. You know, and I don't know how everybody else felt, but you know, even with the commentator, whenever Fox got pulled off for Robertson, he was like, "Well, Robertson can also defend," and it's like, yeah, but we all know that's not why he's out there. He's not out there to do any defending. He's out there to help swing in some ball and see if we can score. And I do think that helped kind of change our momentum and get those last couple in there because we were able to keep them a little bit more honest by firing up our attack some, which was neat. So, I mean, overall, I mean, feelings from this match. We are top of the Jager Cup table. I mean, you can't deny that. Right now, we're like not even just our particular group table. We're top, period. I mean, there's a couple of teams that haven't played a game yet to make 3 like we have. But even if they do win theirs, which only one can, we're still going to be in a situation where we have the most points out of everybody. And our goals scored is only second to NoCo.
You know what's crazy? It doesn't even feel like that though, because our
Right.
games have been so hectic. It doesn't really feel
Yes.
like we're at the top. It does not
Yeah.
feel that way at all.
No. And I guess it just
I
goes
also
back to the results matter.
I also think it just from a kind of like dumb fan perspective too, where a lot of these matches run and bleed together. I'm like, was that a Jaeger Cup match or was that a regular? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they feel
Yeah.
the same.
It's
Like they
hard.
feel very similar. So you have to kind of like when you look at the standings, and I know we'll talk about the difference between the two later in terms of just kind of the feeling and how the team's reacting to it as well. But you look at the just the League One standings, you're like, man, I feel like we should be higher up there. But you know, those are all like 2 of those victories are Jaeger Cup victories. So it's just interesting.
It's just, I don't know. It's super, I don't know, encouraging, I guess, to see that we're capitalizing on this window of time and doing what we can do. And it is really nice. Like, obviously, I hope we're going to stay being successful and then we're going to win our group outright and then move out of the group stage. But it is also nice to know that we're just barely behind the leading scoring team. So we could potentially still do that for that 4th spot, right? We could still have the most goals and then find our way out of the group stage just on merit of goals scored. So it's kind of nice and relieving to feel that we're in the position we are in currently. Now there's a lot of work to be done. The group stage is not yet done. With, you know, a lot can change before the group stage is over. But I feel compared to how things have been going with the league, it's a little refreshing to be in this type of position versus the position we've been in league play.
If I have one takeaway from this whole thing, it's that I don't want to see any more bicycle kicks.
Yeah, no more bicycle kicks. Not at
No,
all.
nah, I'm all right. I had my fill.
What if Zlatan runs onto the field for us just out of nowhere?
I think
Pitch
there would
invader.
be. I think there would be bigger fish to fry than bicycle kicks if Zlatan was out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just go out there and say, I am Lexington Sporting Club, and then just tells every other player to leave the field. And then just only does bicycle kicks for the remainder of the match. But I mean, I don't know. I feel if we're thinking Jager Cup only, let's kind of take league play out of the equation. Where are you guys at?
You said take out Jaeger Cup and just look at this like League
Yeah, just
One
look
standings?
only at Jager Cup, only Jager Cup. Let's
Oh,
not even consider league play.
okay. So I heard the exact opposite of that. No, I think I am really ecstatic that it's goals for and not goal difference in terms of that fourth spot. So
that makes a big difference though. Which we do have a positive goal differential, but
we do.
But you're right, that makes a big difference. Just being like, you know what, you guys can score 5 on us as long as we score 6.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a match that turns out that way. Given some of these results, but I do think that it's has been as wacky as I think we kind of joked early on. Like if you name a cup after Jaeger or really any drink like Jaeger, right? Like an alcoholic spirit or something, you're like, it's going to be wild. So it has lived up to the billing, and I think it's added a fun wrinkle as well. Just, a lot of the USL content and the team content to just having fun with the Jager Cup and a shot at glory and all that. I've enjoyed it. I do think at this point, it hasn't really stood out. It hasn't like separated itself quite yet from the regular season to me. And maybe that will happen later as it gets to the final stages and the final 4 teams and all that. Obviously will feel different, but it's almost like how the NBA did their in-season tournament. And like you'd be watching games and you didn't really even know if it was an in-season tournament game or not, because everything looks and feels the same, right? There's no like special pageantry really or anything around it. So it's felt, in terms of just the product on the pitch, it's felt very similar to regular season matches. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think that can change as the standing gets a little tighter, maybe, or if you get into that Final Four group.
I would like to compare the wins compared to where those teams are at in the table, like the regular league table. I really do worry about if we do make it out of the group stage, what the next stages will look like for us as a team and who opponents could be. Going to be some strong competition, obviously. And, I'm just very wary still. We're leaky, as I mentioned earlier. There's not been real consistency. Once we start to see some consistency, some more lockdown defending, maybe I'll feel a little bit better. I feel like, I guess lucky is the word. We are lucky that we are in this position, and we are lucky that the ball has bounced our way in the results so far.
That's fair. This is a good transition because we took some listener questions and we said we'd address them. And actually, one kind of leaks into what we were just talking about, right? We were just discussing kind of the differences between league play and Jager Cup results, right? And so Matthew Becknell, he actually asked us, will the success in the Cup translate to the league? Our start to the league has been poor. So
I hope so.
He's wondering if we can kind of keep this momentum.
I think so. I mean, I think after talking to Khalid last week and just, general feeling around, like I said, it doesn't seem like there's a huge divide between these two competitions because, again, it's so new. It's the same teams you're going up against, right? I have a feeling, and Khalid, basically verified it, that the team doesn't, I don't think Darren Powell really makes a big emphasis on, and I could be completely wrong, make a big emphasis on like, all right, guys, this is a cup match, let's really dig deep. To me, it's all, they're still working to get better and to improve. And it doesn't really matter the opponent or the, whether it's regular season or cup. So to me, I don't think that really matters to the team. And therefore I think it's a good thing to again, build positive momentum, because the next match will be a League One match. And as I mentioned, right now you're sitting with 1 victory in league play. And so I think the team, again, I hope it does, but I think the team can kind of continue to push forward based on these results from the Jager Cup, because I don't really think they prepare any differently or, have different mentality or anything like that.
Yeah, I hope so. I think positive momentum is very important. We've mentioned it before that momentum is really important, and with how hectic the schedule is, this momentum is very important. So I really hope so that they can pull this off, Tyler.
And I feel the same way as Kyle does about us when we talk to Khalid and him saying like we don't treat it any different. I mean, we practice PKs a little bit more, but otherwise it's just you go in and you play how you're supposed to play and you do what you're supposed to do. And so that was a little bit comforting to me knowing that actually because I don't want them to feel like there's any difference between the two. I feel like for them to do that, it would make it seem like one is less important than the other. And in my mind, every win matters. Doesn't matter if it's Jager Cup, doesn't matter if it's league play. It all needs to be won. Everything needs to be 3 points. And it's really, really encouraging to see that we also had these 2 bye weeks scattered in between these 3 Jager Cup matches, and we still kept our momentum. We were still doing our thing. We were still coming out playing hard, and that's what really matters. And I get like everybody keeps putting out all these power rankings and stuff, and we're still real low. We are like our power rankings match basically where we're at in league rankings, and I'm not blaming anybody at all because we I think still have a lot to prove, but I do think that we could be given a little bit of credit. Ugly wins are wins. It doesn't matter if they're pretty or not. If you're getting a win, and it doesn't matter who it's against, especially in this league, because any team can win on any given day. And that's true for any sport, but it feels especially true for USL 1. So I think that maybe a little bit more of like okay, they are getting wins. So maybe some things change. Maybe the wind is changing for them. But of course, we still have to keep that going. We have to prove it. We have to prove that it actually has changed. And that doesn't stop after 3 victories, right? And I'm calling that one a victory, even though it was like the weird tie and the PK. But if we can keep that going, and I think we will, I think that people will start being like, okay, here they are. They've arrived. They finally came together and made what they had to make, and here it is. So,
Kyle, will you apologize for winning?
You know what, Dylan? I've thought about it. I will never apologize for winning. How about you?
No, I won't either.
Yeah.
No apology.
Never.
Never. Ever. So let's talk about our next couple of questions. They both come from Eric Snyder, who usually gives us questions. He's a pretty avid listener. So Eric asks us 2 very different questions here. Let me address the one involving actual play first. So he's wondering what player on the squad has been the biggest surprise for us, good or bad? I'll start this. I'll start. I think for me, the biggest surprise has probably been, I'm going to go with, let's give it to Jorge. Like, he's a vet and he's been around the game for a long time, but I don't know that I really realized how much of an impact he would regularly have on the game. And I think a lot of times it goes undervalued or unnoticed because it's not like he's necessarily doing a bunch of glamorous things that gets a lot of attention and highlights. But I do feel like he's been very, very solid for us and very, very consistent. And I think we've mentioned that before on the pod. And I don't know that I realized how consistent he would end up being for our team and for our squad, and how regularly we would be seeing him make plays that really, really mattered. Even if they weren't necessarily, something that you're like, oh yeah, he did this flashy thing here. It's more of just nose to the grindstone type stuff. And he's busting his butt to make sure that defense is locked down on his side. And he's also trying his best to make sure that he can deliver in some sweet crosses or passes. He's been good on some set pieces for us. So he's been a pretty big surprise for me.
I think that's a great choice.
That was my answer as well. So
beat you to it. Ha.
You
can use that too.
Great question. And this is a good time of the season, I think, to at least assess a little bit about expectations and what we, thought of these players coming in, both returners and new as well. I think you're spot on with Jorge. There's been a lot of injuries and, red card issues. And even, Yannick getting called up to a national team. Like, it's a lot of interruptions in terms of roster consistency. And so Jorge's been just fantastic to have out there. And I would say Chris Lou Young maybe in a very similar sense as well. Obviously, a little bit of a different type of player. In this past match, I think really could have filled up the stat sheet a bit more, had a few, breaks gone a different way for him. But he's also, I think, been relatively consistent in his play and also important on both ends of the pitch, both in the attack and and defensively as well. So my answer, since you took mine, would probably be the other side of the pitch and Chris Lou Young.
I think you guys know that I would probably pick Abel Caputo, but I'm not going to go with him because he has been like people do like recognize him like very easily and stuff. The person who I think has made an impact and like really surprised me has actually been Yannick, and because of how skilled he actually is. Like we knew he was good, but when you see him play in person, it's pretty crazy. And when he performs skill moves on the pitch, fans literally go, "Oh!" Like they're amazed at what he does. We asked Khalid the question like, who surprises him or like who impresses him in practice. Abel Caputo and Yannick were his answers.
Yeah, I feel like he's almost like one of those FIFA creative players. You know, the way that he moves and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
you max out a lot of his skill moves and stuff like that, and then you go out there, you tear it up. That's a really good choice. Same thing with Chris, man. Like those are players, you know, that I feel like are top notch. Now, like I can't say I'm surprised by Yannick because the moment I put together his write up after watching all of his tape, I was like, this is unreal. I can't believe we signed this person.
I
Like,
think I'm just
what
more
is this?
surprised at like how high his ceiling
Right. The seeing it in
like
person, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
yeah. Seeing it produced for our team versus, you know, like you see highlights from
Yes.
somewhere else and you're
Hmm.
like, okay, cool, but can they do it here, right?
Oh, this is the person we got. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Can they do it at Toyota Stadium on a cold, rainy night on turf with football lines? That's yes, he can. So no, that was a great question, Eric. Eric's other question, we've actually had a couple of times. It's kind of been scattered ever since we heard about the stadium announcement, but he also wants to know what we're most looking forward to about the new stadium. Like when we actually have it ready to go, what is kind of on our radar for like this is going to be what makes it for me.
I don't remember what I said last time, to be honest with you, but did I
I
say
remember what I
food?
did.
Did I say
I,
food?
that's a good choice. Even if you didn't,
Because
I'd say that's a good one. Hot
Because
dogs,
I really
right?
hope there is like some local food vendors
Yeah,
there. Like
that'd be
I'm a
cool.
big fan of Dad's Favorites. I would love to
Yeah.
see some Dad's Favorites
Do
at the
you follow
stadium.
Footy Scran on Twitter?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm very like
yeah.
blackout on social media, but yeah.
No, yeah, yeah, I got you. Though there's an account where literally like people from all around the world will post pictures of the food at stadiums, and it's Scran or not. It's so like good or bad, basically. And so I would love for us to get some top quality food there that we can post, and then tag Footy Scran so that everybody can be like, yeah, that's Scran all day. What a weird word, man.
Yes,
I
that is
love the
weird.
British. Scran. And then of course you'll see everybody like that's scran, and it's mushy peas on
Yeah,
mashed potatoes with
beans and
a
toast.
quart of gravy
Yeah,
and like French fries inside of it. And I'm like, I don't know if I would scran that, but I
yeah,
respect your choice.
yeah. Beans and toast, classic.
Yes, beans and toast,
I just
blood
hope
sausage.
I hope well, I mean, the answer from someone who works at the club is the new stadium will make everything easier in terms of match day operations. And so what I hope that translates to is, obviously the fans are going to have to bring it, right? You can't just
Of course.
manufacture that. You can't
Yeah.
manufacture like support, and you can't manufacture a good atmosphere. But what will help are a lot of the, hopefully operational type of setbacks that the club faced at Toyota Stadium will be alleviated in, a new venue, and whether that's just an improved sound system, right? Like better
Oh
pitch
yeah.
conditions, better parking conditions, better area. Like obviously they have the little autograph alley after the match, which I know kids love, but just, access to those type of opportunities, and continue to kind of grow the interaction between player, team, and fan. And I think once you're in your own stadium, that is just going to be tenfold a better scenario for the club. So I think I'm hoping that the atmosphere takes a step up, and part of that's on the fans. A lot of that also is on the team, or I should say the club. So hopefully the atmosphere is just rocking and rolling. And I think we saw, if you're a fan of Louisville City or have kind of followed them, even when they made the move from Louisville Slugger, they had a really successful team in those Louisville Slugger days. But when they made it to the new stadium, it's, the atmosphere takes a step up just because it's built for soccer, right? And so this will be built for soccer, and I think should be a pretty special atmosphere, and hopefully that results in some more victories.
I'm like crazy, and I'm already like worried about like the sun and like the layout and like being covered and stuff like that. So I really hope that has been like put into account at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously as the former former worker for LSC, the sketches that I saw are probably a lot different than where it is now. It's been so long and so many different iterations, so I don't even know where a lot of that stands in terms of what the look and feel is going to look like, not only when it's finished this for the summer, but like future phases, right? Because this is going to be phase one, and with the opportunity to build and add and things like that. So, I think we'll all find out together.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. And I kind of stealing yours. Mine is just the fact that we're gonna have our home, like our home. And, it's like you said, with the atmosphere and the ability to draw people in. It's just gonna hit different. It just is. Like Georgetown has been awesome. Like, don't hate it. It's been great for us to use in this time, in this period that we're in. But I'm ready for it to be our stadium with all of the trappings of LSC that come along with it, all the vibes that we can build. I think that's going to be really, really great. And you made a great point, Kyle. Like, people might have to be a little bit patient because the first iteration is not going to be the final iteration. At first we're going to have what we need to play, and it's going to have the things we want, but the things that we really, really want, and those little extras, those little amenities that are going to matter, or those features that maybe kind of add that bit of character, they might come later down the road. But it's still going to be a spot for all LSC fans to say, well, this is our house. And then everybody who's constantly bringing up the fact that we're playing in Georgetown and not actually in Lexington will never have that to say ever again, as they wait on their own stadiums that are stuck in limbo or whatever. So we'll at least have that to hold over their heads while we're enjoying seeing things happen in our own. And frankly, it would be super, super cool if we could make an amazing run in USL 1 and ended up having the final hosted at our stadium. That'd be epic if we do that as soon as it gets finished. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's a little bit more to go. Clearly, with the way we talked about the schedule being worked out for the Super League, it appears at least that we're buying a little bit of time. That might not be the case. It's just conjecture, honestly. But it seems like those two ideas are aligning with us starting so late with Super League. But it'll be good whenever it gets here. So that was all of our questions that we had. Do you have any final thoughts before we let everybody sign off for the night?
Nah.
Nothing for me.
Nah.
R.I.P. Walton.
Yeah.
Right.
Legend.
Yeah, I didn't even see that until you guys texted me, and then all of a sudden I went out to eat, and it was all over all the TVs. That was wild. It's one of those unexpected things. I mean, even whenever it's somebody that's up there in years, it kind of catches you off guard.
Yeah, I would say if you're obviously legendary commentator, if you watch Pac-12 After Dark with Bill Walton, but super underrated player as well in the NBA, and had really bad injury luck. But if you're a historian of sports, I would recommend you read The Breaks of the Game. It's a fantastic book, and covers the Trailblazers kind of in the late 70s. So in Bill Walton.
There we go. Kyle's book club recommendation.
Book club recommendation.
Got it. All right. Well, then until next time, we have a few more games in hand. Obviously, a W League game coming up this Wednesday. Then there's another one, I think, on Sunday, if I remember right. It's either Saturday or Sunday, but I feel like it's Sunday. But we got a couple of those coming. We got an away game for the USL 1 side this weekend. So there's going to be a lot for us to talk about the next time that we come back together. Hopefully, all good news. We're returning to league play for USL 1. So our Jager Cup adventures are done for the moment. until we return back. Like Kyle said, it can get a little confusing. You keep having to like check the schedule and be like, okay, which one is this? I'm losing track now. But this is going to be a league game. So looking for us to hopefully carry some momentum into that game, beat Ford Madison. Madison's been kind of up and down, but overall looks pretty good at some points. So if we can actually take it to them, I think we'll be okay. And obviously W League hoping that they can prove that we're here to compete, defeat some tough opponents coming up, especially with Racing and Indy 11 on the slate this coming week. So lot to cheer for, lot to watch. Make sure you guys are supporting. Make sure you guys are watching, even if you can't make it out to these games. Obviously, some away days for a long, long time, but doesn't mean you guys can't check it out. Obviously, if you haven't seen my posts, but the Wandering Bach is a local bar. They've been showing some games. I know the Railbirds have been meeting there. It's a nice, cool little spot. So if you're looking for somewhere to go watch some of these away days, go there. There should be other LSC fans there to watch it with you. But until next time, we'll hopefully have some awesome stuff to talk about. We'll see you guys on the next episode.